Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Donna Fiesel, and I'm your host of Afternoon Drive Home on IC Radio. In the town of Geraldine, Alabama, we're your source for news and entertainment. You can also find us on television two different ways. North Alabama, channel 182 on Charter Communications, and now we are worldwide on Abundant TV, which is found on Roku, Apple TV, and Amazon Fire. I want to thank Rob Patz for making that happen. He is the owner of the station, and we're getting a lot of feedback from it. And you know something, Rob's actually happy. We want to keep Rob happy. So thank you, Rob, for making this whole thing happen. Let's go ahead and get started. I'm with two of my friends, Chuck and Mary Lynn Bailey, and they are with Alabama Fair Tax. And you guys know how I feel about fair tax. Now, guys, you're going to be talking nationwide today. But since we're doing that, I want Alabama to be the first state to get this started.
Absolutely. That's what we're trying to do, Donna, trying to get us number one for changing something. It's absolutely great.
Yeah, absolutely it is. And I think people are seeing the impact on the economy right now. And they're seeing, you know, things need to be different. Something's got to change. This is a great time to get that word out.
Yes, and we believe that the one way that we can fix this, and I think it's about the only way we can fix it, is through the fair tax budget, because it gets rid of all of the regulations and everything, and the IRS and the law that has to do with income tax. And, you know, income tax prohibits growth, and so what are they trying to do? They're trying to increase taxes during a time of inflation, which is just crazy. This bill, the Fair Tax Act of 2021 would clean up a lot of that stuff and help the economy grow a lot faster than it can under an income tax.
The IRS is a means of manipulating behavior, and the market really works a lot better when the people themselves manipulate themselves.
Yeah.
Are free to do what works for them, and it's the difference between central planning and actual freedom.
Yeah. There's no way that some character can sit there in Washington, D.C. or Montgomery, Alabama, and determine what's best for me and how for me to spend my money. It just doesn't work.
Mm-hmm.
Does not. I was talking with attorney Don Brown yesterday, and Don is from Charlotte, North Carolina, and he was on actually one of the legal advisors for President Trump. And we were talking about this, and he said, you know, if Trump comes back, he's already working on something to get rid of the IRS. And I was just wondering, could they be talking about fair tax?
Don't know. We've had a couple of discussions with him, but nothing in any depth that says, yeah, I'm looking at this strongly, guys, stand back and watch, and nothing like that. But he has been briefed on the fair tax, so he at least knows something about it. And he also watched Huckabee talk about it the last time they ran against each other. So
some of his financial advisors too are proponents of the fair tax,
yeah.
But unfortunately the people who are proponents aren't as urgent about it as we are.
They don't put the
I remember when Mo Brooks first became a representative, he was fair tax or flat tax, and that's kind of the way they are now. He became convinced that the fair tax was the best way, but we have a lot of politicians who think we're not going to get pure fair tax, and pure fair tax is the only way it works. You can't amend and say, okay, we'll have this just one exemption, because you have one exemption and that blows the whole thing.
Yeah.
The thing about the fair tax is there are no exemption. Everyone is treated the same, equal justice under the law. And it is actually, that's the way it works, and it can only work that way.
The fair tax is set up like you do the design of an airplane or design of a fast car. It's all a big systems engineering design, and the way it's collected and the way that the money's delved out and everything, all that's a fine tune, and you go fiddle with one little piece of it and it breaks down. And so whenever somebody talks about, well, you know, maybe we could get just do the corporate tax reduction and then do the other two pieces, the Social Security and Medicare that gets paid for by the fair tax, and the and the way it's collected. Maybe we can just do those things separately, but then you don't have the fair tax. So
Politicians think the American people can't handle it.
yeah,
That they
I
can't.
think it's too big.
Too big.
It's too big.
Too big for the American people, and the American
They
people know
can't
better.
handle it. I think
Yeah.
they can't handle it.
Well,
Exactly.
let me ask you this: how big was the pandemic?
It
Well.
was pretty big.
How big was that? And they
We all
closed us.
handled that really well.
And they closed us down to do it, right?
Uh-huh.
So how did we handle that? We're fighting back like the devil now. So
Mhm.
I think that if things go as poorly as we think they're going to go over the next few months, that it'll be a lot easier to talk people into doing the fair tax than it has been previously.
I think so too. And if we can get leadership, people who get it, people who understand, and people who are not in leadership that are thinking if they're only of their pocketbook, I think that might be doable as well.
We ought to at this point say real quickly that the fair tax is a complete repealing of the income tax laws on the books of the United States federal government, the way they collect taxes. It's an abolishment of the IRS within 3 years, getting rid of all of the income tax records so that we're not hurt by those further on, and replacing it all. And I'm saying replaced. Once this happens, all of the income tax stuff is replaced with a single rate consumption tax on new goods and services that you buy for personal use. Because that, my dear friends, is where all those taxes are paid anyway.
Mhm.
What we do is we get rid of all the tax compliance costs and the business decision cost and any kind of cost that's accrued in the cost of a cost and finally the price of a product.
Mhm.
All of that goes away, and you pay your tax when you buy a product, and that's it. You're done with your federal tax.
And I'll tell you another component of this is whether you're legal or not in the United States, you're going to pay just like we do.
Right.
I love that.
There's a feature that's our version of the standard deduction, and it's called a rebate. Except
Rebate.
it's a. Excuse me.
Sorry.
She always jumps on my great statements, Anyway, it's a rebate. We call it a prebate, like I was about to say. Thank you very much. And what that does is you get rebated the amount of money up to the poverty level for your circumstance at the beginning of each month to cover the taxes you'd have to pay up to that amount. And right now, a single person is $13,590. So you would get rebated that amount of money for taxes that you could pay out during the month on stuff you buy, and that clears you of taxes up to the poverty level. If you got a family of four, that's up to $700 a month just for the taxes.
That was just a little bit misleading though, because the $13,000 is not what you're rebated. It's the tax that you would pay
on the
$13,000. So it would.
In that case, it'd be $250, something like that. You get each month.
Well,
and that would be a single person.
Too, because so many government programs that are out there right now seem to be corrupting the family. It seems as if they don't want the family to be together, one man, one woman, and the kids. But I really like how this one is set up. It's set up where it actually promotes families to get together and stick together. We talked about the Captain and Tennille, who love each other. The music group love each other from the 1970s. They used to listen to the music all the time. They got a divorce because they could make their money stretch farther if they were divorced. They're still together. They're just divorced.
We had friends that were married for the longest, and they were a loving couple, and but she had a lot of sickness, and so she said to her husband, "Let's get a divorce so I can stay out of your pocketbooks and make sure I'm covered for my medical." And they got a divorce for that reason.
Well, there are elderly people too who don't marry, so they can keep getting the same tax breaks and Social Security and so on. So, that's social manipulation, and I really think that if you in a free country,
you shouldn't have
that's
to do
not
that.
Freedom. The government is making those decisions for you, or enticing you to make those decisions, and
that's a Marxist outcome based on the income tax, which is the second plank of the Communist Manifesto. Go look it up.
Yeah,
Mhm.
look that
There are
up,
10
everybody.
there are 10 planks, and that's number 2, a progressive income tax.
Mhm. Yeah, well, we're
Yeah.
seeing that that's not working. Now, we
It's
saw
not
with
working too well.
President Trump, when he was president, we saw just a tiny bit of what this could do for our country. Let's talk about businesses for a few minutes, and then I'd like to talk a little bit more about individuals. How can this help a business? Let's say you're a business you'd like to expand and maybe want to come to the United States. If versus now, like right now, if you own a business and you're coming into the United States, it's not going to be that easy financially, is it?
No, not the way the system is set up. As a matter of fact, there, all the regulations and everything people I've seen lately where it's just, it's almost like climbing Mount Everest to get your business started, and then you have no, you have no say so in it to a degree because of all the regulations that they have on it. But under this system, for the federal, you not have to collect any income taxes or Social Security, anything like that, because that's part of the single rate consumption tax that's charged at retail for your new goods and services you buy. So that gets rid of all that complicated, convoluted, corrupt income tax filing stuff that you have to go through to run a business these days. And just all you business guys out there in the retail business, especially, what do you think it'd be like if you don't have to worry about collecting up the Social Security on all your employees, or having to pay any income tax yourself or for your employees, or you're in your investments and your charitable giving is not taxed because it's considered an investment under this proposal. How can you not be for that is my question. How can politicians not just jump on that these days? And the answer is they and their lobbyists love the income tax system.
That should speak volumes to you right now. And I'll tell you this, we used to own 8 Nextel stores. It was a headache. Now, we made a lot of money, but I'm going to tell you what, if you just missed one thing on the tax end of it, they would put you with so many penalties and interest. It wasn't even funny. I mean, it was just, I had to call them all the time. They would say they didn't get something. And I knew they did. And it would be for me to prove that I did send it so they could take the interest and penalties off.
That is one thing about the IRS is if there's a mistake, you are guilty until proven innocent. And unlike the jury,
If they're wrong, okay, that's no problem.
Yeah. That was one of our first experiences as a young couple. We had 3 small children under 5, and we bought a home. That was our first big deduction. Up to that time, we practically paid no taxes because we didn't have any money. And so when we deducted the mortgage, I don't even remember what it was, but and we also did some improvements on the house and got audited. And that was when we finally got through the whole thing. It turned out that we didn't owe any more money. They actually owed us money, and they said, "Well, we'll just call it a draw." And so they didn't give us.
You charge them interest and penalties.
Well, but the thing was, we were. I don't know if you remember or not when you were first audited, but I couldn't sleep for weeks before we had to go in. Yeah. And so just saying, okay, we're going to let you go and you don't have to pay any more money, because we didn't have any money. We were at the point where we could pay the doctor bill or we could pay the mortgage, one or the other, but one might have to slip for a while. And I don't like living that way, living that you can't pay all your bills, and to have someone come along and say, well, you owe the government more money. Again, I had that. When they said you can go, she
grabbed stuff and kids, and we were out of there.
Yeah. Actually, we took the children too, because I said, you know what, they're not going to pay us for babysitters. So we took the kids.
Right.
So they were playing around in the guy's office.
We had really well behaved children, but I said, you know what, have a good time.
Yeah. Yeah, you can go crazy. Feed them full of chocolate before you bring them in there too.
Yeah.
Well, getting back to the business, your station in life doesn't keep you from having a run-in with the IRS. For instance, one of our current congressman, Barry Moore, representative from the 2nd District, was in the state legislature at the time. And, you know, it was a stigma against him because it happened because he got out that, oh man, this guy's, he's being audited by the IRS. And you know what that does as far as a politician is concerned.
Well, he's a businessman too.
He was a businessman, and that's, and it turned out that he had, I guess, you know this better than anybody else that I'm talking to right now, that things that are used for the business are covered one way, and then things you use in the house are different. He has an earth moving business and that sort of thing, and his office was right across from the house. And one day somebody found out he'd used some toilet paper from the house over at the business, and they wanted to audit him about that. They raked him over the coals until he got that straightened out. And it was because, and the way they found that out was that his accountant checked the wrong box. Stupid form. We don't have those wrong boxes to check because there are no forms to fill out under the fair tax. Just have that to think about for a while.
And businesses too have no business to business tax, so they only have to audit their own business. And almost every business that I know of keeps an inventory of what they have and what they don't, of what they've sold, and that's all you have to know. If you sold X number of dollars worth of whatever this month, well, then that's what you pay the tax on, and anything beyond that is. And
that's still auditable by the income, the sales tax authority for whatever the state you're in.
Yeah, and it's done by the state, not the federal government. So
the big thing is that, you know, we've got something like 150 million people filling out tax forms every year, corporations and individuals. And this drops it down to several million, because most of the people are going to be having to pay this tax are going to be Target and Walmart and big companies like that. And the smaller guys, the only people that are required to collect the tax are retailers. And so you got your bottleneck fairly large for this to for enforcing this particular law, because you're not encumbered with all that paper and everything. You have a single form you turn in periodically, depending on how much tax you turn in. And that single form says, I had this much inventory, I sold this much, I made this much money, here's how much tax I owe out of that. And by the way, I had some returns and stuff, so I need to be recompensed for those. And here's the money I'm giving you. And that's it.
And the state audit thing is done by design. I really do. It's to keep you so busy, because some forms, honest to goodness, some forms are the same thing. They're just on different sections of another piece of paper.
It's just totally for control.
Yeah, it's a minefield. And actually it's meant to be that way, because the IRS is weaponized. It has been ever since FDR. I mean, it was first established in 1913, and they've been using it ever since to attack whoever their opponents are. Yeah. It was a big thing during the Tea Party period.
Oh, yes,
they went all after all. So, that's, and, I'm sure they're doing it now. I don't, right now we're not being investigated. We're not being investigated.
No, they had a case against them. They're not allowed to do those Tea Party organizations like that again. What they would do is, oh, you want this 501c3, this 501c4? Well, here is these 90 pages of things you've got to answer.
Yeah.
And a lot of them is, we like to have a list of who's donating to your cause and all that stuff. And so,
what kind of books do you read?
Yeah.
Where do you go on vacation?
All kinds of stuff like that.
Yeah.
So valiant folks like Becky Garrettson down there in the Montgomery area, she had the Tea Party down there that they started up. They took them to court and they won. So they helped everybody else out a lot.
Yeah, but I mean that they won that case, but I'm sure that that hasn't stopped.
Yeah,
they're not going to.
That was a class action suit though. A whole bunch of us joined in on that. So it's not It's
Yeah.
not just that group that benefited from it.
But they can get, if they can get away with it, I mean, they might get caught one time,
Yeah, they'll
but
still try.
they're not gonna get caught every time.
They'll still
Well,
try.
I was a member of the Tea Party in Charlotte, North Carolina, and I told you guys about this story, but it's worth mentioning again to got a whole new audience out there. And so we moved from Charlotte, North Carolina back to Alabama again. They went back, I forgot how many years it was. I thought they were only supposed to go back, was it 7 years? They go beyond that. And it was actually when we owned a business back in the 90s and said we owed that we didn't pay or didn't turn in W-2s or W-4s, whatever it was, for our employees. And they gave a guesstimate of over $10,000. And so I called trying to be nice, because one thing you don't want to do is be rude to them or they'll slam you for sure. And so I said, I don't know what this is. And they said that I didn't send in the forms for the employees. So they did a guesstimate. They thought it would be somewhere around $2,000. It wound up with interest and penalties. All those years wound up being up to $10,000. I got that straightened out, but thank God Phil didn't listen to me this one time. He was going to I told him to throw a bunch of stuff away before we moved. And I said, no, they'll just go back 7 years. Don't worry about it. And he said, I don't trust him. I'm taking it anyway. And I'm like, okay. So anyway, he took it back. If he had not done that, I'd been paid $10,000 because we had the proof that we sent it in and did it.
Just think about every year people prepay their taxes. They give an interest-free loan to the government. There is no interest paid on that money that you pay in. And if they, if you don't pay it, then the interest builds very quickly. So, it's their side wins no matter what. And this real thing too, the government it's we the people. But it's not we the people. It's an adversarial thing that, again, Marxism designed. It was, it's that.
This is based on Marxism.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. So for those people,
this to our listeners, and this is a taped show right now. Normally, you guys are getting texts and stuff like that. So this is taped. So if you have any questions right now, you can go ahead and send a text to me 256-659-4319. And the next time the guys are on the show, I'll have those questions ready for you. That's 256-659-4319. I'll be glad to put that out there for you.
Please send your questions, because we do better. I mean, we answer what we think is what's interesting to us, but there are a lot of other things that can be interesting to other people that we might not necessarily think about. And we love to answer questions. That's a much better way to handle it.
Yeah, and you guys have received a lot of questions in the past. Some really good ones in this show. Now we've talked a bit. I wanted to ask you a question, and I definitely remember this. This was from the last time you guys were on the show. So this business owner, and I'm trying to remember who he was, but he sends a text, and he said, you were talking about new goods and services that, for us, for the customers, we only pay tax on new stuff. Well, what if it's a resale shop? Does the business owner, they don't pay taxes either? See, I didn't know the correct answer to that. I was afraid to answer it.
What's going to happen is any profit they make off that sale, they're going to pay taxes when they buy stuff.
Yeah, and the thing about used goods is they're taxed.
They've already been taxed.
They're just taxed once. Yeah. And so in a resale store, if you taxed it, that would be double taxation.
Yeah.
So,
and heavens knows we've got too much double and triple taxation already.
Yeah. And that's
But the whole thing is we're trying to get this fair tax passed at the federal level, as well as there are 3 of us states right now that are actively trying to get state fair tax bills through. That would be Alabama, Georgia, and Nebraska. All of us have had Georgia and Alabama have had bills submitted to their House members, and Nebraska has done a resolution, and it missed by 2 votes. 2 guys that promised they were going to vote for it didn't show up or something. So at any rate, we're still in the fight, and the thought is if we can get Georgia and Alabama and Nebraska and a couple other states into the fair tax business and show that how well it's going to work, well, then these other states would have to do something, or the Fed would have to do something, because you just can't look a gold egg laying goose in the eye and and shoot him for dinner. You just can't do that.
Well, and
You can. They do it all the time.
No, you can't do that. You got to save that goose.
yeah, and from
Yeah,
living in Charlotte, North Carolina, there are a lot of headquarters from businesses in Charlotte, North Carolina. You'd have those North Carolina folks wanting to move to Alabama. I mean, they
Right,
would.
because
You'd be
yeah,
a
one-
fool
one-
not to.
one thing that that happens here is maybe we didn't make it clear that there are no corporate taxes on this, because you get rid of the income tax, you get rid of the corporate tax. So what happens is that all of that stuff goes away, and when a company comes into your state talking to you about moving there, they don't have all that income tax stuff that they got to worry about, and they'll be more likely to move their businesses there and a lot of headquarters there. Plus, they will start insisting that their subs start doing their business inside the state of Alabama or whatever, and it just kind of blossoms from there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you've heard the term Schadenfreude. It's the German term for you want to punish other people because just for the heck of it, I guess. And there are a lot of people who think corporate taxes ought to be raised. And the Democrats use that a lot, liberals do, that we need to have companies pay more corporate taxes. But what they're asking for is to have the prices on whatever goods that they buy from that company be more expensive. We were speaking to a man one time who said he wanted to punish Levi.
Minute left.
And wanted them to pay more taxes. And I said, well, you do know that your jeans will cost more. And he said, I don't care. I just want them. I want them to pay more taxes. Yeah. So
That's
it's
dumb.
Yeah, it was dumb.
It was, but it's a gut thing.
Well, let me
You know,
tell you, and you guys are going to get a kick out of this. This guy must have been a Democrat. So this was back in the 1990s. I had a business in the Quintard Mall in Oxford. So I had a product that this guy could actually find at a trade day. So, and it cost 99 cents. And tax rate, I think, was 8% then. And he said, do you charge tax on this? And I said, well, yes, sir, I'm a legitimate business. I have to. For all I know, you're from the IRS just checking me out to see if I am. And he said, well, if I buy it at trade day, I don't have to pay it. I don't have to pay taxes at trade day. And I said, but how much is the item at trade day? He said, $1.25. And I said, I don't even want to talk to you. I mean, I just turned away because this guy didn't get it. I would be charging him $1.07. He'd rather say he's not paying taxes by paying $1.25. That was a Democrat.
That's essentially what this guy was doing.
Yeah, that's essentially the same thing, because corporations don't pay taxes. They collect them from the consumer.
Everybody's in business to make money, for goodness sakes. If you're not, you're a fool. And they're going to find a way. Plus, these big companies have attorneys they're on their payroll. They have attorneys who figure it out. How can I get out of paying this much tax? How can I get out? And that's how it works. That's how it rolls.
You know what? Because they have all those attorneys and they're paying all those lobbyists, they think they're getting special deals, and they are. But they get an even better deal with the fair tax
Because they don't have to pay for those lawyers.
exactly. But again, yeah.
Guys, that was a timer just went off. So we're going to have to
Okay.
today. Chuck and Mary Lynn Bailey from Alabama Fair Tax. Thanks, guys, for being
Talking about me, face your feet, shout my name, proclaim the name.